If you've been on the internet for any length of time, you have heard the term freshly milled flour. You might be asking yourself, what is that and why is that important? Well, I'm here today to explain to you what freshly milled flour is, how you can use it in your kitchen, and why you should be switching your family to this option. Freshly milled flour is flour made by grinding whole grains, like wheat berries, right before you use it, instead of buying pre-packaged flour that may have been milled weeks or even months ago. What makes it different from pre-packaged flour? Well, when you mill fresh flour yourself, you keep all three parts of the grain: the bran, which contains a lot of fiber; germ, which contains healthy fats and nutrients; and the endosperm, which contains starch. In this video, I'm going to show you how I mill freshly milled flour in my kitchen, and I'm going to use that fresh flour to make 3 everyday things. I'll be making tortillas, a sandwich loaf, as well as dinner rolls. In recent years, many people have been talking about freshly milled flour on the internet. It's more nutritious. That's definitely something that has been mentioned before, but it's true. When compared to prepackaged flour, freshly milled flour contains more vitamins, especially B vitamins. It has healthy oils from the germ, and it has a better mineral content than prepackaged flour. These nutrients start breaking down as soon as you mill the flour, which is why freshness matters. Now, I might be a little bit biased, but I believe freshly milled flour tastes better. It has a nuttier flavor, it's slightly sweeter, and it's actually more alive in flavor as compared to prepackaged store-bought flour. One thing to note when using freshly milled flour is that it will behave differently than your prepackaged, pre-processed store-bought flour. Now, I am not speaking negatively against prepackaged store-bought flour. We used it for many years before we learned about the benefits of using freshly milled flour. Many home cooks today still keep all-purpose flour in their pantry because it does react differently than freshly milled flour. My family, however, has switched completely to using freshly milled flour, and so I have worked to compile a list of recipes that I find works for me. But it does take time, there is a learning curve, and so if this is something you'd like to incorporate in your kitchen, feel free to ask questions down in the comment section down below, and I will be happy to explain how my family and I transitioned from using all-purpose flour to freshly milled flour. One of the big differences that you will notice is that freshly milled flour absorbs more water and is going to make a denser bread as compared to what you'll find on your store shelves. You may have to tweak your recipes in order for you to make the switch from using an all-purpose flour to a freshly milled flour. My family and I have embraced the scratch cooking lifestyle, and so for us, milling our own flour meshed perfectly with what we were already doing. It helps us to avoid the processed foods, and it gives us control of what we are putting into our bodies. I use freshly milled flour for everyday things like sandwich loaves and dinner rolls, like I will show in this video. I also use it to make pancakes, tortillas, muffins, anything you would need flour for. That is what I use my freshly milled flour for. I will caution though that freshly milled flour has a shorter shelf life because there are no additives in the flour, and so you would like to use it within a 72-hour span. If you find that you've milled flour and it's too much for the recipe that you're using, feel free to put some in the freezer or in the refrigerator to slow that process down. One way to avoid over-milling is to use a kitchen scale. If you use a kitchen scale, you're likely to mill what you need on demand, and that will cut down on over-milling. While I prepare these in my kitchen today, I would also like to talk to you about Mary Magdalene. Mary Magdalene is a woman whose life was transformed by the grace and power of Jesus. As I prepare these items for my kitchen today, I'm reminded that God often takes what feels broken and brings it into something nourishing and whole. Mary Magdalene's story is one of redemption. Luke 8 verse 2 tells us that Jesus delivered her from deep spiritual oppression. After that moment, her life changed completely. She became one of his most faithful followers. Mary's devotion shows us that when Jesus heals and restores us, we are given a new purpose. She supported Jesus' ministry, traveled with him, and stayed near him through every season, even at the cross. While others fled in fear, Mary remained. She stood by Jesus in his suffering, and she was also one of the first witnesses of his resurrection. Her life teaches us that God's grace rewrites our story. Mary Magdalene reminds us that no past is too broken for God to redeem, and no life is too far gone for his love to restore. Her faithfulness shows us that once we are healed, we can live with gratitude, loyalty, and purpose. Her story reminds me that redemption is a beautiful work of God. Mary's story encourages us to live fully devoted to Jesus, grateful for his healing and ready to walk in his calling for our lives. As you can see, I used my NutriMill harvest today to mill some flour for these things that I'm about to make. I started my fresh milling flour journey using a entry-level mill that I bought off Amazon. It worked great. I just needed something that would mill in larger batches, and so we upgraded to this NutriMill harvest after a few months of using the entry-level mill. I will put a picture on the screen to show the mill that I was using, and it worked perfectly fine until we made the upgraded switch. One thing with the NutriMill harvest you should know, it should always be turned on before you add the grains to the mill. That way the stones can start moving before you add the wheat berries. I will be milling hard white wheat to make these dinner rolls and to make the sandwich loaf. I will then mill a soft white wheat to make the tortillas. If you've been on my channel for any length of time, you know I absolutely love using my bread maker. I use my bread maker because it allows me to multitask in the kitchen. So once I have milled the flour I need for these recipes, I'm going to pull my bread machine pan and I'm going to put all the ingredients I need to make a very simple sandwich loaf. I will put the recipe in the description box, but I have a whole video showing you how I use my bread machine to make sandwich loaves, so I'll also link that in the description box if you need specific step-by-step instructions on how to use your bread machine to make a basic sandwich loaf. This recipe makes 2 1-pound sandwich loaves, and I normally make the dough in my bread machine. When it comes out, I divide it into 2, shape it into 2 loaf pans and bake it. But today I'm going to make 1 sandwich loaf and then use the dough to make dinner rolls for tonight's dinner. It's the same recipe, and that's the beauty of working from scratch. We all need to learn how to work smarter and not harder. I have found one recipe that works beautifully for many applications, and so I use that one recipe time and time again. If you're feeling inspired in the kitchen and you want to try something new, by all means, go ahead and do that. But I find that you can rely on go-to recipes on a weeknight, especially when you just have to get dinner on the table. Use those recipes that you've come to love and trust, and you'll find that your time in the kitchen is much better spent using these trusted recipes. As you can see by the lighting in my kitchen, this is early in the morning. So this was a school day. This is something that I like to do early in the morning, right before we start homeschooling. I get my doughs ready so that they can rise and they can rest while I attend to my children. Again, I will link in the description box all the recipes that I will be using. Any videos I find to be helpful will also be listed there so that you can reference them in the event that you need that. So after our first few hours of school, my dough has rested and it was time to press my tortillas before putting them on my cast iron pan. So I'm simply just going to take them and put them between my tortilla press. I like this machine. It makes it a little bit easier. It gives me less to roll out, but this is not a necessary equipment to make tortillas at home. So this was a very quick video just to share with you how I use freshly milled flour in my kitchen. This has been something that my family has switched to 100% of the time. When we learned about freshly milled flour, it was not just a quick transition. I am not one to go into the pantry and throw everything out when I find that there's something that we need to change in our diet. If we've already spent the money, we're going to use what we have, but then we won't replace it with the same item. So when we learned that we wanted to switch from using all-purpose flour from the store, we bought some wheat berries and I slowly integrated the freshly milled flour into my recipes along with the all-purpose flour until I used it up. Once I was finished with the all-purpose flour, then I didn't replace it, and then we just replaced and replenished what we needed with the wheat berries. If you would like more information on using freshly milled flour in your home, if you're interested in where I get my wheat berries, how the transition went with my family, I would love to continue this conversation. And so feel free to leave any questions or comments down in the comment section, and I would be happy to share what I know with you. Freshly milled flour does not have to be intimidating, and I really enjoy the health benefits that come with milling my own grains. Once again, if you have questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section down below. Thanks so much for being here in my kitchen today. Until next time, be safe, and thank you for being you.